Good evening children and welcome back to Yupp Master. Well, we have begun with the chapter of animal diversity and we have discussed about classification of animals and also we learnt about Phylum Porifera in our last lecture. So, let us quickly just go through what we learnt about the important points about Porifera that we had discussed in the last lecture, and we will begin with the interesting topic today of Phylum Cnidaria. Alright, so let's begin. Alright. If you remember, when we talked about Porifera, the most important thing about sponges, the most important feature that they have was none other than their water canal system. Do you remember this water canal system? It was also called as a water transport system, or we may also call it as an aquiferous system, okay, in which, if you remember, there were numerous pores on the body wall which were known as ostia, and then there was a middle cavity which was called as the spongocoel, and all the water would come out through that one common opening on the top which was called as the osculum. So this made the whole water canal system. And what was the purpose of this water canal system? It was performing actually 4 different body parts or different systems that we have in our body. This one single water canal was able to perform the functions of nutrition, of respiration, of excretion, and also of reproduction. Alright, so these are big time important thing there in the body of a sponge. Alright. Also, we studied the important parts of the sponges, the important cells which are located, like the very first cell that we saw that was called as the choanocytes. These choanocytes were also called as collar cells, and these are the cells which are having flagella upon them, right? What was that for? Do you remember? I just told you, in the water canal system, water always had an upward current. That upward current was because the flagella belonging to these cells were being or rather was pushing the water always upwards. All right. Then also we saw that the digestion here was said to be an intracellular digestion, and which were the cells involved? Do you remember the name of that cell involved? It was called as an amoebocyte. Amoebocyte. Okay, it was called as an amoebocyte. So digestion here is intracellular, and the reserve food which is there in the sponge is stored, and it is stored in cells which are called as the thisocytes. So 3 different cells we just saw over here: the choanocytes, the amoebocytes, and the thisocytes. All right. Okay. We also had seen that the skeleton of the sponge, although sponge is a lower animal, but still it is having an endoskeleton. Okay. It is an endoskeleton. Okay, so this is a characteristic feature, striking feature, and this endoskeleton is made up of, this is what's the important part here now. It is made up of spicules, it's made up of spongin fibers, it can be made up of both of them, and more interestingly, it could even be made up of none of them. Okay, so it could be either one or both, okay, or even none of them. All right. Then we saw some important examples here. The first example we studied was that of Sycon, okay, also known as Scypha. Then the radially symmetrical sponge, otherwise sponges are asymmetrical. The radially symmetrical one was called as the Leucosolenia, alright. Then we had the freshwater one which was called as Spongilla. Then we had the bathing sponge which was called as the Euspongia, alright. So now, after all that we did in Phylum Porifera, let us now start with the phylum of Phylum Cnidaria. Alright, so when we talk about Cnidaria, basically we're talking about Hydra, then we're talking about jellyfish, okay, jellyfish also. Alright, so let's see here what Phylum Cnidaria is all about. Now, Phylum Cnidaria was previously in school, you might have learned this as Phylum Coelenterata, okay, now we will call it as Phylum Cnidaria. And these actually were the first movers. If you remember, in Phylum Porifera, there was nothing at all which was moving. There was no locomotory structures present at all. Alright. So we see here, first of all, the habitat, it is mostly marine. And there may be few freshwater animals in this phylum, which would be like example of Hydra. We also see that the symmetry in these animals is, it is radially symmetrical. Now you got to remember one thing. When we say that it is radially symmetrical, understand that in this Hydra itself, let's see the diagram of this Hydra. While choosing the symmetry, in Hydra, we are not supposed to consider the tentacles. Okay, so Keeping apart the tentacles, I am only talking about the remaining body part, that is this region. And it is seen that this part of the body is radially symmetrical. Okay, so this is the part that is radially symmetrical. Then germ layers. How many germ layers? It is diploblastic, meaning that it is having 2 germ layers. That would be an endoderm and an outer ectoderm. Alright. And remember, Phylum Porifera had no germ layers at all. So now is the starting of the germ layers to arise. Then level of organization would be the tissue level. Okay, but still the tissues have not managed to come together in order to form an organ. So that is tissue level. Then talking about the body plan, it is a blind sac, which means that there is only one opening. Okay, that opening is going to be common for the mouth and the anus, which means that it is an incomplete digestive system. Whenever we have the blind sac body plan will always indicate a incomplete digestive system. Okay, where there is a common opening for mouth and for anus. Alright, so that's what you mean by blind sac body plan. Now, talking about why is this phylum called as Cnidaria? Okay, it's called as Cnidaria. Why is it called as Cnidaria? Because of the presence of certain special cells that they have. Okay, so these basically what we're studying right now are the special features. Okay, now in the special features, the reason why it's called as Cnidaria is because of the presence of these cells here, and these cells are called as cnidocytes. Okay, cnidocyte, which means cell. So now these cnidocytes may be also called as cnidoblast. Okay, or look at a new name. It can also be called as nematoblast. Okay, so you have either cnidocyte or cnidoblast or nematoblast. Okay, this is the name of the cell. Now look at this diagram on the right side and you will see where exactly these cnidocytes are located. Can you see these tentacles of the hydra? Okay, and on this hydra tentacles, can you see at this part which has been enlarged over here? Okay, on that part there are these cells here, and these are the cells that I'm talking about here. This one cell that you're seeing here, this is a cnidocyte, or you can call it as a cnidoblast, or you may call it as a nematoblast. So you know that this over here is that cnidocyte, and look at that apparatus inside the cnidocyte, which I am just covering over here right now. Can you see this part which I have outlined in red color? This apparatus inside is called as a nematocyst. Do you see that name? It's called as a nematocyst. So inside the cell of cnidocyte, there is a stinging apparatus which is called as a nematocyst. What is this nematocyst going to do? Have you ever seen Spider-Man ever attacking an enemy? What does he do? He opens his hand and then a web starts coming out of it, doesn't it? Similarly, whenever a prey comes and approaches the hydra, what does it do? From the tentacles, there are those cnidocytes. In the cnidocytes, there are stinging structures called as nematocysts, and these nematocysts are going to be opening up. Okay, so can you see how that nematocyst has exploded and it is opening up? And when it opens up, its stinging apparatus is going to wind all around that prey. Can you see that? And also one thing, remember that while it is winding around this prey, it is not only saving itself, but also it is going to go and attack that prey. So that's why these cnidocytes are meant to be organs of not only defense but also of offense. So these are the offense and defense mechanisms or structures which are located on the tentacles and the body of a cnidarian. And this is the basic reason why we are calling this phylum as Phylum Cnidaria. Alright, okay. Look at this, how it's working. One more colorful diagram. Okay, so here is the tentacle, and here those blue color structures that you're seeing here are the cnidocytes, and the cnidocytes inside they have the stinging structure called as the Anyone remembers? It was called as nematocyst. Okay, they was called as nematocyst, and then those nematocysts can take out that stinging apparatus, and it can wind it all around this prey. Alright, so this is basically how that cnidocyte is working. Alright, now coming to the different body forms which are seen in this phylum. Okay, so not only is it, when I told you in the very beginning that there are two basic examples here. One example I told you of a hydra, and second example I told you of a jellyfish. But then hydra and jellyfish itself seem to be so different from one another. One of the body form is such where it doesn't move at all, like that of a hydra. Whereas when you see the other body form like that of a jellyfish, it's constantly moving. Constantly you see that it is swimming all around inside the water, which means that this phylum Cnidaria is having basically two body forms. One is called as the polyp and the second one is called as the medusa. Alright, now where is the difference lying? Let's see that. When I'm talking about the polyp, this is the one which is sedentary. This is the one which is not going to move. This is the one which will be attached to some substratum. And it is cylindrical. Okay, can you see how this is looking like? This is sedentary and a cylindrical shape. Okay, and this is basically how your hydra is going to be. Hydra or even Adamsia. What is Adamsia? Adamsia is the scientific name for a sea anemone. Okay, we'll see how a sea anemone looks like. Then coming next to the freely flowing one. Okay, the next body form which is medusa. In this medusa we see that it is a freely swimming, and look at the shape of it. Can you see how this is of an umbrella shape? Okay, can you see how this is umbrella shaped one? And you can see how the difference is lying. One is a cylindrical shape and the second one being an umbrella shape. One is sedentary and the second one is freely swimming. Okay, the jellyfish, the scientific name is called as Aurelia. So you have hydra and Adamsia here, and you have Aurelia, that's jellyfish, as a medusa form. So there's two body forms in that of a Cnidaria. One is a polyp and second one being a medusa. Alright, okay, let's continue. Do you remember that instead of Cnidaria, previously we used to call this phylum as Coelenterata? How was it spelled as? Coelenterata. Okay, now when I'm talking about Coelenterata, let's break up this word. Okay, whenever you have the word ATA, ATA always means having or bearing. Okay, and when you talk about enter, okay, basically let me give you a couple of words in front of you. If I am saying renal, okay, renal means which body part? Means kidney. Okay, if I put the word in front of you, cardiac, then which body part am I talking about? Am I talking about the heart? Okay, if I put a body part in front of you called as the enter, what does this mean? Enter always is indicating that of the intestine. Okay, so when you see the word enter, it basically means intestine. And when I talk about Coelenterata, okay, enter means intestine. Coelum means a cavity. So this means that there is a cavity, or these are animals which are having. Okay, let's see here. Let me just erase that. Okay. Okay. So basically these are animals which are having a cavity in their intestines. Okay, so that's why this is also called as a gastrovascular cavity. Okay, and this cavity is called as a gastrovascular. Gastro, why is it called as gastro? Because gastro means digestive, and the word vascular means blood vessels, or rather you can call it as a circulation. So this one cavity that you're seeing, look at this over here, this cavity if you're seeing here, this is the cavity we're talking about inside. Okay, you can see that this is that whole cavity. This cavity is going to be serving as a common cavity for not only the digestive system but also for the circulatory system. Okay, so this whole cavity inside region is going to be common for digestive and for circulation. Okay, and because this was blind sac body plan, you can see how this whole animal is having only one opening, and that is over here. Okay, so this is that gastrovascular cavity, the reason why we were calling it as Phylum Coelenterata. Okay, now if you remember when we studied porifera, we knew that there was no sense organ, there was no nerve endings, there was no neurons, nothing was there at all. But talking about cnidarians, and look at this hydra over here, right here next to you, this region, this animal here, it's a polyp form of the cnidarian. This is having a sense organ, a nervous system of the most primitive type. Poriferans have no nervous system. Cnidarians are the ones which are beginning with a nervous system, and the nervous system here, most primitive one, it is called as a nerve net. Okay, the hydra, okay, hydra is having a nerve net where you can see that all of these neurons are just put together. It looks like a big net, okay, a meshwork over here, and this is the most primitive nervous system ever seen. Okay, a nerve net present in hydra. All right. Now, continuing forward, we see that certain cnidarians are there, okay, and these cnidarians have got a calcium carbonate skeleton, okay, which means that the skeleton here is made up of calcium, and that too, which one? Calcium carbonate. These are the special ones which are called as corals. Now, corals, you might think that these are just organisms present in the water for show. Okay, it looks really pretty, they've got such vibrant colors and they're very amazing to look at. But did you know that these corals are helping us in so many ways? And not only us, in fact these corals are proving to be a home for so many small fishes which are residing in the sea. Okay, all of these corals are behaving like a small a full shelter for them. And okay, and also, do you know that these corals are also called as the rainforest of the sea? They're known as the rainforest of the sea. They provide home to so many small living organisms in the sea. All right, so let us see now what are some of the most important economic importances of these corals. Okay, so economic importance. First one, the coral reef is like what I just mentioned right now. It is the habitat of thousands of different species of animals. Okay, we also see that when these coral reefs are wherever they are located, in fact you might know about the city of Mumbai, and in Mumbai there are coral reefs located all around the seashores, okay, inside the water. And did you know that it's because of these coral reefs that the city of Mumbai is still upright and alive? Because you don't know how many waves of currents, cyclones, hurricanes must have come in so many years during rainy season, during the winds from the sea approaching towards the land. But most of those high currents which are coming from within the sea, those currents are being absorbed by the coral reefs located in that region. So when we say that the currents are absorbed over there, we see that that is preventing that from damaging the seashore. It is preventing it from damaging the land area over there. So Mumbai being a part or being a city which is surrounded by water on almost all the sides, these coral reefs are helping Mumbai today stay alive big time. All right. So we see that the coral reefs are going to help to break down the impact of cyclones and of hurricanes too. All right. We see that these coral reefs can be used in medicines as calcium supplements as well. Okay, so they're used as calcium supplements. We also see red corals. These red corals, many a times they are used in jewelry, all right, jewelry making, in the chains or anywhere, jewelry making, red corals. Also, we see that these coral can be used as decorative items too. Can you see over here how pretty that coral is looking? Okay, you would never imagine that something from the sea could come out and be manufactured in such a way that it can end up looking so pretty. All right, so these are how corals can be used as decorative items. All right, so these are the economic importances of corals. Now, when we talk about cnidarians and speaking about the reproductive features of them, we know from childhood that hydra reproduces by budding, that is the asexual mode of it. Alright. Now if you remember when we did porifera, also there was budding over there. But over there, the budding was done internally by formation of something which was called as a gemule. When we come to Hydra, over here the bud is going to be external, okay, and that external bud will keep growing all the way until, it will keep growing until we see that the bud is become apparent on its own, or rather the bud has become an adult form on its own, and then eventually it will fall off. Okay, so you can see here how that bud has fallen off. And the sexual reproduction in Phylum Cnidaria takes place by syngamy. Now, when we see a special feature, okay, there is an example in this phylum which is called as Obelia. Now, before I begin with Obelia, I'd like you to remember which were the two body forms that I spoke about when I talked about Cnidaria. Anyone remember those two body forms? First one, which was sedentary. Didn't I call that one as polyp? Okay, and the second one, which was freely swimming in the water, the second one was called as medusa. Okay, so generally when we talk about the phylum Cnidaria, we know that there are going to be two body forms, either polyp or medusa. But then, coming to this one specific example here, that is the Obelia. Well, we see here that Obelia has got a different form altogether, in the sense that Obelia is actually, when it is reproducing, it is showing both the body forms. Okay, how is that happening? Let's see that. It is a whole process, a whole phenomenon which is called as the alternation of generation. Okay, alternation of generation also means metagenesis. Okay, it can also be called as metagenesis. What's the meaning of metagenesis? Where alternation means polyp, then medusa, back to polyp, back to medusa. This is what I'm talking about, alternation of the generations. So what happens? Let's read these two sentences together. First sentence, polyp reproduces asexually to form medusa. Let's see what that is all about. Look at this diagram here. Can you see this diagram here? First of all, this first thing that we are beginning with, this is a polyp. Okay, now this polyp structure that you're seeing here, it is not able to produce gametes. So what is it going to do? This polyp will now reproduce asexually, and when it's going to reproduce asexually, it is going to be forming intermediate bodies, and these intermediate bodies are going to be freely swimming. So can you see here how these are umbrella shaped bodies? Okay, one, and this second one also, this is an umbrella shaped body. Now this umbrella shaped body that you're seeing, isn't it a form which I can call as the medusa? Okay, so we started off here with a polyp. That polyp reproduces asexually. Okay, it reproduces asexually and it will form an intermediate form which is called as a medusa. Now, can you see that in this medusa form, one is going to be behaving like a female and it is going to be producing the eggs. Okay, these are the eggs coming from here, and one will be behaving like a male and that will be releasing the sperm. So sperms coming from here. Alright, now what do we see? Now these eggs and the sperms which are there, those are going to be fusing and they will fuse to form a zygote. Okay, can you see over here? This is the zygote that is formed here. So that zygote, okay, now we see that that zygote there is going to grow. Can you see how that zygote is growing? And as it is growing, it is going to come and get attached to a substratum. So now can you see over here how this zygote has attached to a substratum? Okay, so now since it is attached to a substratum, may I say that it is a polyp form? Yes, so now what has happened? This has become polyp. Alright, so what has happened? Can you see here? One is polyp. It reproduced to become second medusa. Again, that released gametes. If I am saying that the medusa is releasing gametes, can't I say that it is going to undergo sexual reproduction? Okay, so that's released, that is sexual reproduction, and sexual reproduction is bringing rise to again another polyp form. And then that polyp form, as it grows and it becomes an adult, will repeat the cycle in the similar manner. So what we saw here was, look at the same sentences that we read just a little while back, where first we said that the polyp is going to be reproducing asexually and it is forming medusa. So what is this medusa? This is that intermediate, okay, the intermediate form that we had, that was the medusa one. Then that medusa one is the one which was producing gametes. So that one is going to be reproducing sexually, and that is going to eventually again give rise to a polyp. This is seen only in this one, which is called as the obelia. Okay, it's only seen in obelia. All right. Now, let's continue. So, we saw this diagram. What was this diagram called as? It can also, what was the names of it? We gave it a specific name where we can call it as alternation of generation, or you may call it as metagenesis. Okay, all right. Now, let's continue and look at this one example here. Okay, this is called as Physalia. Now, this Physalia is a type of cnidarian, okay, and it is also known as the Portuguese man of war. Now, why is it called as the Portuguese man of war? Because over here we see that the shape of this animal, the shape of the animal looks like a cap of the Portuguese man of war, and these here, the stinging apparatus that you see, are always ready to sting the person. That's why man of war. Okay. Look at the next example. It's called as Gorgonia. And if you see the common name, it represents just like what its common name states it to be. And that is nothing but a sea fan. Alright. The third example here would be Meandrina. And Meandrina is another name, or another name for Meandra would be brain coral. Can you see this is a coral, and you can also see that just like that of your cerebrum or of your brain, it has also got those elevations and depressions just like that of your real brain. So that's why it is called as the brain coral. Alright. Okay. Coming to the next example, we say that is of Hydra, which is which body form? It was the polyp body form. Okay, let's see the other examples here. That is Obelia. What was that important feature of Obelia that we just studied right now together? Wasn't it called as the alternation of generation? And this alternation of generation, always remember, it is seen in Obelia. Alright. Next, look at this jellyfish. You need to remember the scientific name for jellyfish, and that is nothing but Aurelia. Okay, so remember Aurelia is a scientific name for jellyfish. Other examples we come to, that is Adamsia. This is a polyp form. Okay, this is polyp, and this Adamsia can be called as a common name called as sea anemone. Now, let me tell you something very interesting about this Adamsia. Okay, it is actually a topic that you will be learning when you come to the 12th standard, and when you're learning about different types of relationships which are there in our ecosystem. All right. Now, we see here that sometimes this Adamsia, let's say it is living in an environment where over there at that time there are no actually animals, or there's nothing for it to be feeding on. Okay, there are no planktons, there's nothing around. So now what does it have to do? Doesn't it have to relocate so that it can go to an area where it has more food? Alright. So but what happens? This is a polyp, and being a polyp, it doesn't have locomotory structures, and neither is it able to move on its own. So what does it do? This polyp is, or this Adamsia, is going to find itself a crab over there. Okay. Which crab? It's called as a hermit crab. Okay. It's a hermit crab. What does it do? This Adamsia will go and sit on the body of that hermit crab, and then that crab will move, or rather, as the crab would naturally do, it would keep crawling from one place to another. But then what has happened? While the crab is crawling, this Adamsia is able to relocate itself from one place to a totally different new place. Wherever it will see that now in that new place, it is finding food over there. Immediately that Adamsia will take a small effort and try to fall off of that hermit crab. So now What is this type of relationship that has been developed? Where Adamsia was benefited, but that hermit crab, it was neither benefited or neither was it put into any trouble either. So this is a type of relationship where one is benefited and the other one, it didn't make a much a difference to, neither was it benefited and neither was it undergoing any harm. Alright, so that is Adamsia. Next, look at this example. It is called as a pennatula, also known as a sea pen, just as how it is looking like a pen. Okay, that's why the common name is called as sea pen. Alright, so these are the different examples we saw. Let's remember those names. Okay, first one was called as the Portuguese man of war. Do you remember what that common name was? It was called as the scientific name was called as Physalia. Second one, sea fan, it was called as Gorgonia. Third one, brain coral, it was called as Meandrina. And then we did the next ones. That was Hydra. What was Hydra called as? Hydra was called, Hydra is the same thing, scientific name or common name. The next one, Obelia we did. Obelia was commonly, it can be called as the sea fur. Okay. We also did jellyfish, which was called as Aurelia. And then we started with the next one, that was the sea anemone, which was known as Adamsia, and then the sea pen, which was called as Pennatula. Alright, let's begin now that when we're talking about the phylum Cnidaria, and once we have done the general characteristics of them, let us begin with seeing that what are the different classes found in this phylum. Okay, so we see that the first class seen here is called as the Hydrozoa, the second one is called as the Scyphozoa, and the third one being Anthozoa. Okay, so you have Hydrozoa, you have Scyphozoa, and then you have the Anthozoa. Anthozoa may also be called as Actinozoa. So basically, we remember that there are three classes: Hydrozoa, Scyphozoa, and Anthozoa. Okay, beginning with Hydrozoa. This Hydrozoa, okay, now you will see here many characteristics of the basic Cnidaria that we have studied, but then we're going to just see the different classes of it. So naturally, when we're studying a class, basic features are going to be there, but then amongst the classes there will be some differences. Okay, so now we see in Hydrozoa, they may be solitary, like that you see in a Hydra, or they may be even found in colonies. Okay, now seeing the life history of this, it may be sedentary. Okay, it may be having a sedentary form which is asexual, the polyp region of it, the polyp form. When I'm saying that it is like a polyp, I can use the word polypoid. Okay, polypoid basically means like a polyp. Okay, so that is polypoid form, and then it can be that would be the freely it would be another freely swimming form of it, that would be the sexual, the medusa type. Okay, so the sedentary asexual polypoid form, and then the sexual medusa form, and that is the one which we are talking about, Obelia. So Obelia was one organism in which, in Hydrozoa class, where they are showing both the body forms, that would be the sexual and the asexual one. Asexual one was the polypoid one and the sexual one was the medusoid one. Okay, we also see here that the medusoid or the mesoglia. Okay, what is mesoglia? You know that these are going to be diploblastic. Okay, these are diploblastic. Alright, now if I say that they are diploblastic, then they will have two germ layers, and then between those two germ layers there will be a middle mesoglia, and this mesoglia in this region is completely non-cellular. Okay, also we see cnidocytes occur only, look at this here, where are the cnidocytes? Cnidocytes, Cnidaria, cnidocytes, stinging apparatus. Cnidocytes are occurring only in the ectoderm, only in the ectoderm. Second, we see germ cells. These germ cells are derived from the ectoderm too. Okay, so in Hydrozoa, cnidocytes are in the ectoderm. Germ cells are also derived from the ectoderm. Then we see here that some of these animals belonging to this class are exhibiting polymorphism, which means that they are showing different types of structures. They are exhibiting polymorphism with different types of zooids. Okay, different types of physiologically we are able to see, anatomically rather, different types of structures being seen, and that's why they are said to be zooids. What is that we're talking about? Wasn't this were about the that polyp and medusa? Okay, polyp and medusa both being there. Both, these are the zooids, both polymorphism. Which was that animal which we were talking about? Wasn't it Obelia? So that's why, because Obelia has both the forms, that's why we call it as polymorphism. Alright. So that was all about the first class, that was Hydrozoa. Coming about the second class that we are going to talk about, that is Scyphozoa. Now, in Scyphozoa, we see that there is a jelly-like mesoglea. Which type of mesoglea? It is a jelly-like mesoglea. And because it is a jelly-like mesoglea, these are what we're going to categorize our jellyfish in. Okay. So this is a jelly-like mesoglea, and the mesoglea here, look at this very important point. The mesoglea here have irregular shaped cells. So those are going to be called as amoebocytes. In our first class that we discussed about the Hydra, the Hydrozoa, there the mesoglea had no cells at all. The second class over here in Scyphozoa, there is mesoglea, no doubt, because it is diploblastic. But that mesoglea is jelly-like and it contains amoebocytes. Okay. We see here in this phylum also, or in this class also, there is a solitary form also, and there is a medusa form as well. Solitary would be none other than the polyp form. We see here that the cnidocytes are occurring in both the ectoderm and the endoderm. Remember, there are two germ layers, and it is seen here that the cnidocytes are found in both the germ layers. Okay. Then we also see here that the germ cells which are there, those cells are derived only and only from the endoderm. So germ cells are coming from the endoderm. Okay. Now, we see here that in this class, the mouth, okay, the mouth I'm talking about, it is surrounded by 4 oral arms. Now, where is the mouth? First, let's locate where the mouth is. This part that you're seeing here, that I'm just coloring here in red, do you see that, children? This part is the mouth region. Now, I am saying that the mouth region is surrounded by 4 oral arms. Which are those oral arms? Can you see this yellow color that I'm doing here? These here are those 4 oral arms. So we can see here that the mouth is surrounded by 4 oral arms. Alright. Okay. That was in Scyphozoa. Next, talking about the third phylum, and that third phylum is Anthozoa or Actinozoa. Now, talking about Anthozoa or Actinozoa, the example that we see here are the sea anemones. Okay. Now, when we talk about these sea anemones, let's see what else this class is about. These are the sedentary and the polyp versions. Okay. Like how you see here in the, this is the sea anemone. Alright, these are sedentary and polyp. Then the coelentron. What is coelentron? Coming back to our breakup of the words, coelom means cavity, okay, and enter would mean the intestine. So this is just the intestinal cavity. So this intestinal cavity or the coelentron is divided into many compartments. And what are these compartments all about? Can you see here? All of these here, these compartments that you are seeing here, these compartments are what you're going to be calling as the mesenteries. They're called as mesenteries. So those compartments are called as mesenteries. Okay. These cnidocytes we see, they occur in ectoderm and in endoderm over here. Okay. Not only one germ layer, but the cnidocytes are occurring in both ectoderm and the endoderm. Alright. Also, we see that the endoderm here also, just like the second class over there, it is also derived from the endoderm. Okay. Now, we have completed all the different structures, all the different parts about phylum Cnidaria. I hope this was clear and understood by you. Okay. Just tell me, let's just revise what were those important pointers that we learned. Okay. If we're talking about phylum Cnidaria. Okay. Now, in this phylum Cnidaria, the first important thing that we need to remember was that it can be also called as the phylum. What was it called as? It was Phylum Coelenterata. Also called as Phylum Coelenterata. Also, we saw that here it has got two types of body forms. Two body forms. Which were those body forms? Those body forms were one, polyp, and the second, medusa. Okay, polyp body form was that body form which was cylindrical and it was sedentary. Okay, whereas medusa was the one which was umbrella shaped and it was free swimming like a jellyfish. Okay, free swimming. All right. What is another important thing that we studied in this phylum? It is having one opening, blind sac, and we call that one opening as the gastrovascular cavity. Okay, we called it as the gastrovascular cavity for digestion and circulation. Okay, for digestion and circulation. Okay, coming to the next point, there was one example. Okay, I'll just say the name of the example. It was Obelia. And this Obelia showed the reproduction in a very distinct manner. And what was that manner? It was called as alternation of generation. It was called as alternation of generation, where what happened there? It was the polyp form. The polyp was reproducing. Polyp was reproducing asexually. Polyp was reproducing asexually to form medusa. Okay, then medusa was reproducing sexually to form back to polyp. So polyp became medusa and medusa became polyp, which is why we're calling it as alternation of generation. Okay, next what did we see? Okay, next we saw the presence of very important cells, which is why we call it as Cnidaria. What were those cells called as? They were called as presence of cnidocytes. Cnidocytes. Okay, those cnidocytes may also be called as cnidoblast, or you may call it as nematoblast. Okay, now the stinging apparatus which is found inside these cnidocytes were called as nematocyst. Okay, they were nematocyst. And what was the function of this nematocyst? Anyone remembers that? It was used for offense and defense. Okay, it was used for offense as well as for defense. Now, coming to the next point. Do you remember the next point? Do you remember how we had studied about the different examples also present here? Okay, the different body forms we did, different examples. Which were those examples? The very first example that we did was called as Physalia. Do you remember that? Physalia. Let's write this in a different color. We'll write it in black. Okay, the first one there, Physalia. Okay, what was the common name for Physalia? Physalia was called as the Portuguese man of war. Okay, Portuguese man of war. Second example, okay, second example that we studied was called as Gorgonia. What was this Gorgonia? It was sea fan. Okay, then we did Meandrina. What was Meandrina? It was brain coral. Okay, after that we have also moved on to how we did next one, Hydra. Okay, then we had Adamsia. What was Adamsia? It was nothing but sea anemone. Okay. Then we have Aurelia. What was Aurelia? Nothing but jellyfish. Okay. Then we have Obelia. And if you remember, Obelia was also commonly called as sea fur. And finally, the pen-shaped one, it was called as Pennatula. Okay, that was sea pen. Okay, that is sea pen. All right. So basically, these were all the important features that we found in belonging to the phylum Cnidaria. Okay, all of these phylums. Please remember these important features more than you would actually want to remember those general features. Okay, these are the striking characteristic features of this phylum, and these are from where the MCQs are actually picked up from. Okay, all right. So now once we're done with phylum Cnidaria, let us go on and let's just give an introduction to this phylum, the next phylum, that is Phylum Ctenophora. Okay, it's a very short and a very sweet phylum, and the animals here are extremely beautiful looking. Okay, so now let's come to the habitat first of all. These animals are exclusively found to be in marine water only. Okay, the body symmetry here, they are bilaterally symmetrical, they are spherical. Okay, they may also be radially symmetrical too. All right. Now the germ layers here also, it is still at a level of diploblastic animals, and the most important, the most special feature of this animal is that it is going to exhibit bioluminescence. What is bioluminescence? It means that it is able to take the energy and convert it into a chemical energy where it is able to throw out light. Okay, like if you see inside the ocean only, these are those animals which are going to be actually be glowing. All right, can you see here in this diagram, you can see all this colored, multicolored region over there. Okay, those multicolored region that you're seeing is actually light which has been emitted from that animal while it is in the ocean. All right, so this is called as emission of light, also known as bioluminescence. All right, now one interesting fact that I'll tell you, we have studied about podiferans, we studied about cnidarians, now we've moved on to Ctenophora. Have you ever heard me saying any organ of the body which is representing something which wants to see? Anything which represents eyes, you don't see it anywhere. Neither did we see any structure in Porifera, neither did we see any such structure when we did Cnidaria. But coming to Ctenophora, what do we see here? That these are animals which are emitting light. So it is very naturally, as a course of evolution, that if an animal is emitting out light, then there will be a higher or a more advanced animal which would want to see that light. And this emission of light from this phylum is actually going to give seed to another animal which will be advanced than this, which is going to be having some structure, which will want to see light, which would be nothing but a structure which is similar to an eye. Alright, so this is a special feature, that is bioluminescence, which is seen in the phylum Ctenophora. Alright, then in this phylum, talking about the reproduction here, sexual reproduction occurs, but the fertilization is external, not happening inside the female body. Alright, locomotion here, there are external rows of cilia seen over here. Okay, and this external rows of cilia is what helps to this animal keeping it swimming in the water. There are larva forms of this, which means that if a larva form is present, what type of development is it? Can I call it as an indirect? Okay, it can be called as indirect development. Okay, it is an indirect development that is in the larva form, and that larva form of a Ctenophora is called as the cydipid larva. What is it called as? It is called as the cydipid larva. Okay, now let us now next come to the external rows of cilia. How do they look like? Okay, for that let's see the examples which are there. Look at these examples here. Can you see how beautiful these are looking like? Look at these here. Can you see these small structures that I am just coloring over here? Dot, 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 small lines which I am making. And these small lines, when you see them, they look like combs, okay? They look like how you have small lines on a comb. Look at the other example, it will make it even more clear. Can you see how these are looking like small lines over here? And these small lines here are looking like combs. And that is the very reason why these are called as the Ctenophora, okay? When you say Ctenophora, say the word Ctenophora, right? Okay, see, Ctenophora, cten means comb, okay, and phora means having. So these are animals which are having comb-like structures, okay. So because they are having comb-like structures, that's why they call as Ctenophora, and this is how it looks like. Look at the first example here, it's called as a Ctenopleura, and the second example here is called as the Pleurobrachia, okay. Ctenopleura and Pleurobrachia. Pleurobrachia may also be called as the sea gooseberry, okay, sea gooseberry, alright. So these are the two examples that we have studied in the phylum Ctenophora. Okay, one is Ctenopleura and second one being Pleurobrachia. Alright. So, children, we have completed today with the phylum of Cnidaria and with the phylum of Ctenophora. Now, coming next, in our next lecture, we will come and we will hence move forward with our phylums. First, before we wind up for today, let us just have a brief recap of what were the different phylums which were there in our non-chordates. Do you remember those 10 names? I had told you to remember them in groups of 3. How do we remember these in groups of 3? The first one, which is the first one? It was phylum. First one being phylum Porifera. Okay. Second one, phylum Cnidaria. Okay. Third one, phylum Ctenophora. Okay. Then these 3 are done. Coming to the next 3. Fourth, the worms, phylum Platyhelminthes. Okay. The fifth one, Aschelminthes. Okay. The sixth one, Annelida. Okay. Now, after Annelida A, another one A, Arthropoda. After Arthropoda, Mollusca. And after Mollusca, Echinodermata. So, after Echinodermata, the last one, which is one which was similar to that of the notochord, or rather it was having a feature which was looking like a notochord, but it is not, so I am calling it as Hemichordata. Alright. So, we have covered these 3 phylums until now, Porifera, Cnidaria and Ctenophora. Now, being very good children, what you will do, you will go to Yupp Master app. You will download this app, okay? And first of all, this very video that you're watching right now with me, you're going to hit the like button for it, okay, for me. And you would subscribe to this page too, right? Also, you go to the Yupp Master app and you will download the app. Why am I telling you to do this? Because in today's video, whatever we have covered, I have placed MCQs on that, okay, only on today's topic, okay. There are 20 MCQs, and once you solve those MCQs, this whole topic would actually be covered in your mind, okay, because you always remember that just reading a topic is not finishing it. When you're able to solve all the MCQs related to that topic, you know you're done, right? So you'll go to this app, you will download it, you will share this with your friends as well, and you will solve today's DPP. You know that when you go to this app, you know that there is an online platform where you can personally ask your doubts, and I personally will be solving your doubts on that platform. Okay, so whatever doubts you have, whether it is if today's lecture or the previous lectures, do post it on that online website, and that is yuppmaster.com, and I will solve all your zoology doubts which are there for this chapter. So children, until we meet in the next lecture, you all stay home, you stay safe, And do download the app, ask your friends to do this too, and continue watching our lectures and have fun. Bye-bye, children.